Welcome into college football smothered and covered. My name is Barrett Salee. Appreciate you checking out the show. Reminder to follow on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, Rumble, Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It's been a great week. Why not have a weekend feast? Here's the best of the best from this week's college football smothered and covered. Joined now by one of my favorite people in the coaching industry, South Carolina head coach Shane Beamer joining us. Shane, what's going on?
Not much. It's great to be on with one of my favorite people in the media industry. So appreciate you having me and great to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you. I will send you my Venmo account and, just transfer it on over. But, before we get into the South Carolina Gamecocks in 2024, this is draft weekend. And, I think for a coach in this industry, in this day and age with the portal going on and official visits, all this stuff, what is your draft weekend like now as opposed to, 5 years ago?
Yeah, great question. It's different because now these draft weekends are when you're hosting potential portal visitors as well. So we've got a little bit of that going on. It's great now that we'll have some guys that are part of the draft that were on our team in 2023. So excited for them, obviously. But probably that's the biggest change. Is one, as the head coach, you're watching all your guys. I've always been a fan of the draft, so I could sit there and watch literally every pick for 3 straight days and not move and be happy. I don't get that luxury because there's different head coaching duties that I'm responsible for. And we'll also have guys that we're bringing into our program on visits this weekend that can hopefully be in that draft one day after they help us win a bunch of football games here at Carolina.
One guy that's going to hear his name called is Spencer Rattler, and he was fantastic for you guys. He actually was pretty good at Oklahoma, too. I think that maybe some things get lost in Spencer Rattler, that he was ineffective. He's very effective at Oklahoma. He comes to you guys and continues a stellar career, wraps things up after his second year in the program. What kind of development did you see from year 1 to year 2 and with him in your system? And what does he need to do now to have a prolonged career at the NFL level?
Yeah, proud of him and excited for him. And you're exactly right. It was going into the 2021 season. Mm-hmm. He was the preseason favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. And everybody's
it doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah. And everybody's projected number 1 pick in the draft. And then all of a sudden he's the quarterback of an undefeated team and lost his starting job, and all that goes away for some reason. I don't know. People a lot smarter than me have to figure that out. But he came here, proud of him. Obviously, he had some monumental wins for us in 2022. And what he would say, somewhat of an up and down season for him. Maybe not great statistically, but he led us to some huge wins in 2022. And then 2023 was a challenge for him. One, he made progress. I think just understanding the offense, understanding defenses better as well. Year 2 or a new system that he had to learn. So he's been a part of 3 different college systems now. What he did at Oklahoma, a coordinator here in Marcus Satterfield in 2022, and then Dow Loggins, a coordinator in 2023. And there were some similarities from year to year, but there were some differences in what we did terminology-wise. So a different system, but just a better understanding overall of defenses. Thought he was very much more in command of everything this season as well. And then I think the thing that has really impressed a lot of these NFL teams is we faced adversity last season. And we lost. We started 2 true freshmen on the offensive line last season because of injuries, and we had 6 season-ending injuries on the offensive line last season. So it was very much a revolving door up front, and because of that, Spencer was under duress, and faced adversity. But NFL teams never saw him flinch, never saw him complain, never saw him outwardly be frustrated. And I think it showed those teams that, and that's why he's got such a big pro career in front of him. As far as what he has to do, I think just continue to progress on the track that he's on right now. And it'll be great for him to get with a team and get in there and learn that system. He's smart, he's tough, he's competitive, he's a great guy, and he's going to get into an NFL organization and I think do some really great things for him.
One of your former players was sort of the draft process darling from these scouts, and that's Xavier Leggett. And I had us that cover college football on an hour-to-hour basis going like, where have you guys been? Like, have you not seen this guy before? But what do you expect him to do at the NFL? Because he kind of did, I would say, burst onto the scene. I don't know if that's the right word, but he became a star last season. What's his upside? Who do you compare him to at the NFL level?
Huge. He's going to thrive at the next level. He's a great person. He's extremely competitive. He's smart, football wise, and off football and non-football wise. Very intelligent. He's just got a great work ethic, and that's why it's going to take him so far. I mean, it's literally the week of the draft. Monday morning, he's in the weight room here at our facility at 6 a.m. working out, and literally on draft day, he's at the facility catching balls outside on the practice field after he was in the weight room working out. And no disrespect to anybody that's going in the draft this weekend, but I don't know if every single one of them are in the weight room early in the morning draft week, much less at their own team's facility. They're usually somewhere else doing whatever, and that's their prerogative. But I say that for Zay because he's got an unmatched work ethic. He's relentless about it. He's grateful, appreciative for everything. And who he compares to, I don't know. I mean, there's another receiver that came out of here, obviously, in Deebo Samuel, that they're built very similar in a lot of ways. And Zay is a guy that, from a receiver standpoint, he can win on the outside. He can win on the inside. He's a 4-unit special teams player, meaning he can cover kickoffs, return kicks, play on the punt return team, cover punts. He loves special teams. That's the thing. I mean, yes, he had a great season this year at the receiver position. He'd have been drafted even if he didn't have this season just because of his ability to play special teams alone. I mean, all you have to do is go watch our game against Texas A&M in 2022. He returns the opening kickoff for a touchdown. And in the same game, he's running downfield, covering kickoffs and making solo tackles inside the 20-yard line. And he's playing gunner on the punt team. So he can just help a team in so many ways. And that's what I'm excited about for him as he gets into takes the next step in his football career.
All right, spinning it forward, you do have to replace Spencer Rattler. You go in the portal, you get Robbie Ashford. You have Ladarius Sellers on there as well. What is your quarterback situation looking like, at least post-spring practice going forward? Are you ready to name a starter? Do you have somebody in mind? Just what's the plan?
Yeah, that room is certainly more competitive. Lenore Sellers was a freshman last season, played in 3 games for us. Robbie comes in from Auburn. Luke Doty, who's been in our program now for a while. That's kind of a combination wide receiver and quarterback. Dante Reno is a freshman quarterback that just got here. And then Davis Bevel, that transferred in he had been at Pittsburgh and Oklahoma, but is a South Carolina native and transferred in as well. So there's depth in that room. They're all at like different stages of their career. Lenoris is the one that's got the most experience in this system, along with Dow, or Scott, along with Luke Doty being with Dow Logan. So those guys all had good springs. They're all really good players. They're all extremely competitive, and I saw all of them get better throughout 15 practices, during the spring as well. So I'm excited about that position and those guys and how they continue to make our offense better. They got a lot of new faces around them as well. So I'm just eager to kind of get everybody here and continue to build on what we did in spring practice, not just at the quarterback position, but offensive line, wide receiver, tight end, running backs, because we have new faces, whether it be freshmen or transfers at every single position on offense.
How hard is it to keep a depth chart together at quarterback? Because there's only one football. At wide receiver, whatever, you can still, 8 catches, 5 catches, 3 catches, all these opportunities. But how do you keep something like that together?
Yeah, it's hard. I saw that firsthand when I was at Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley. And you think about it, you had 3 years in a row where you had transfer quarterback and Baker Mayfield that came in, transfer quarterback and Kyler Murray that came in, transfer quarterback and Jalen Hurts that came in, and then Spencer took over. And then in a lot of those instances, transfer quarterback comes in, quarterback that's already in the program possibly decides to leave, or you sign a hotshot freshman like Spencer, but then you've also got Jalen Hurts. Other quarterbacks say, well, I'm not sure I want to go there because they got Jalen Hurts, and then they just brought in Spencer Rattler as well. So it's a challenge because we got to a point in my last year at Oklahoma, which was 2020. Spencer was our quarterback. I think we only had 3 scholarship quarterbacks on our entire team, if I'm not mistaken, that year. Spencer, Tanner Mordecai, who ended up transferring to Wisconsin, and Chandler Morris, who ended up transferring to TCU, I believe. So that's scary when you got 3 scholarship quarterbacks, and one of them's a true freshman that literally just got to town. So that's why, to me, you can never have enough of those guys, because you're exactly right. Like, there's only one. So if a guy realizes that the other guy's going to be the guy, sometimes they're going to stick around. You've seen that with Mac Jones at Alabama, and Carson Beck at Georgia did that, but a lot of times they're going to leave. So you've got to think about, signing definitely at least one quarterback a year, Barrett, in high school recruiting, always, just to keep that number where you want it to be, if not more, and then certainly the portal. But it's a challenge more so than any other position, because there is only one.
You mentioned the offensive line troubles last year and all the injuries you did have on the offensive line. How do you fix that? How have you done that so far, and what do you need to do this summer?
Yeah, before our players even got here, as soon as the season ended, sat down with our strength and conditioning, nutrition, and training room staff, and just went through all of our injuries, not just on the offensive line, but across the team, because we offensive line got hit the most, but we also want to look at everything that we're doing, and is there something from a nutrition standpoint, training standpoint, recovery standpoint, practice, the way we do things, is there a common denominator that maybe we need to tweak to be better so that doesn't happen? So you do that. But the biggest thing for us is just continuing to develop the depth. I mean, we had freshmen in there last year that we had to play, and we're going to play some freshmen this season as well. Increase the depth where when you do have an injury, because you're going to have some injuries throughout the season, there's no doubt about it. You've got enough depth in there where you can survive it and overcome it. Last year was an extreme, and you pray that you don't have that many injuries at one position again, where your starting center finishes the season as the starting right tackle, and starting guard finishes the season as the center. I mean, it was tough because I think it was week 10 before we started the same offensive line combination in back-to-back weeks. So weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we had a starting 5 that was different every single week. And it wasn't because of guys getting benched. It was because of injuries. And that's tough, because you've been covering this sport long enough. Like, you've got to have that continuity up front, those 5 guys together. And the good news is all of us that went through that last season, other than Nick Gargiulo, who was our center, they all returned. And it's great. Those freshmen that had to play are a year older. Those guys like Vershawn Lee, who played center and right tackle last year, they're back. So we'll be better automatically because we've got more depth, we've got more experience. We brought in some transfers that we're excited about, and I was pleased with that group in the summertime, and excited to watch them continue to progress in the summertime. I was excited about them in the springtime, and then excited to watch them continue to progress in the summer months as we lead into preseason in August.
Well, you know what they say, some of the best lessons and some of the best information comes from failures. And so, that had a lot of trials and tribulations last year on that offensive line. So last year you kind of switched to a little bit more of a 3-3-5 defensively. Now you're kind of back to a 4-2-5. Like, what's the plan defensively? I know, all y'all like to say it's multiple, right? But, with the personnel that you have, what are you looking for from your defense?
Yeah, great question. Last year for that was one, and it's always this, let's be multiple enough where we can get our best 11 guys on the field. And, I just looking at us last season, we had some athletic linebackers that I felt like we needed to find a way to get on the field a little bit more, to generate a little bit more pass rush, and just to be a little bit more disruptive. We started out the season playing good defense against Georgia, against North Carolina for the most part. Played solid defense, went through a stretch against Mississippi State and Florida where we didn't play great. And then we finished the season playing really well defensively against Kentucky and Clemson. Our defense played well enough for us to win those games. And going into this year, it's the same thing. Let's get our best 11 on the field. And part of the reason last year, Barrett, was because of a lack of depth on the defensive line. We basically had a 3-man rotation at defensive tackle. And that's tough because those guys get worn down. We've brought in more depth on the defensive line at the defensive tackle position and the defensive end position. But we've also brought in more depth at linebacker. Like, I'm really excited about the athleticism of our linebacker crew. We're better. We're more athletic. We're more talented. To me, that group, linebacker, may be, one of the strengths of our team, but we're also better up front. So to answer your question, we're working both. I think every game is different. We do want to be multiple enough where we can play some 3 down and play some 4 down. And we'll continue to see how guys go. But at the end of the day, it's get the best 11 on the field, but also be multiple enough where you give opposing offenses a lot to prepare for. And I feel like we'll be able to with our personnel.
All right, so we are a couple days away from the transfer portal window closing. Is there somebody right now in your football complex just hitting refresh over and over and over and over again?
Pretty much. I hope we got more than one. We tell our position coaches, they're in charge of their positions, obviously. So we always are looking at how to make our team better. And me as the head coach, but each position coach in their particular room, their unit, and then our recruiting personnel staff / department. We're all in this thing together, and we're all looking at it. I like the team that we have in place already here that's in this building. And really excited about this group, the way that we've recruited, the freshmen that we have here right now, some of the transfers that we've already brought in. But like every program across the country, we have some positions that depth-wise we're not where we need to be at. Us, like every school in America, has a target number of bodies that you want at each position to get through a season, scholarship-wise and total player-wise. And couple spots we're not where we need to be, and we need to be able to increase the depth just from a practice standpoint, competitive standpoint on Saturdays, and that's what we're looking to do. But like the group we have right now already, but if there's a way to make us just a little bit better, we're going to, and that's my job as head coach.
Has there ever been a moment, like you don't need to name names, but where you look at that portal or one of your assistants sees a name pop up and you're just like, no freaking way he's in there?
Yeah, I've had a couple of those this week, actually, with guys that have gone in the portal, and it's one of those like, really? So nothing I've learned in my short time, nothing really surprises you anymore when it comes to that. And there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen right now around student athletes and things like that as well. So certainly there's a lot of times that you hear of guys that are in the portal, and it's certainly surprising for different reasons each and every time. And like I said, a few of those this week specifically.
Though, looking at the calendar, especially in the winter, you guys are putting on 5 or 6 different hats seemingly all the time. How would you fix that? Or do you even want to fix that?
No, I would. I think from a portal standpoint, period, in my mind, I think the portal windows need to be shortened a little bit than what they are already right now. It's essentially the way it is right now. The portal's 6 weeks throughout the year. And to me, a student athlete, I'm not anti-portal. We've benefited from it. We're going to continue to benefit from it. But I do believe that a guy doesn't need 6 weeks out of the year to determine if he wants to go somewhere else and play. I think that decision's usually pretty clear to them at the end of their season or at the end of spring practice as well. So that'd be one thing that I think would be better for the student athletes and the coaches, for one. And then I don't know, there's a lot of things from a calendar standpoint that I think could be better. But, at the end of the day, I'm still surrounded by great people. I still love what I do. There's different challenges that the job brings that weren't here 2-3 years ago. And you just learn to navigate them as you go and make it the best for the particular program that you're a part of at that moment.
All right, it is Booster Club season. And so I got to ask you, South Carolina's got great food. Low country boil or Carolina barbecue?
Carolina barbecue. Nothing against anything else, but that's certainly hard to beat, particularly on the Booster Club circuit as well. I was in Lancaster, South Carolina last week, ate at the Catawba Fish Camp, and that was a whole bunch of just fried food and fish and all the hush puppies, and that's what it's all about on the Booster Club circuit for sure.
How much cardio do you have to get done after all this stuff?
A lot. Fortunately, I stay pretty active and try and work out pretty regularly, but I got to be even more diligent about it. Might do 2-a-days in the month of May just because I know how much I'm going to be eating on the Booster Club circuit as well.
Awesome. Well, Shane, appreciate you hopping on. Good luck during the last couple of days of the transfer portal window and beyond. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks for having me as always.
Joined now by one of the best coaches in college football, a guy who's been around the block in a variety of different roles across the Southeast. Now he is the head coach at West Virginia. He is Neal Brown. Neal, what's going on?
Well, appreciate the kind words, Barrett. Appreciate you having me on. Look forward to it.
So I read 16 months ago, you called it the reset. And I'd say the reset went pretty good, like blowing in the Nintendo cartridge when you couldn't get it to work. And now you have a 9-win season. Everything is hunky-dory in Morgantown. Tell me, like, the process. What happened? What did you try to implement when you hit this reset button?
Well, I think anytime things don't go the way you want to or the way you expect them to go, like, you have to kind of look in the mirror first and foremost. And we had a ton of success at Troy. We had a great run there where we won 30-plus games in 3 years and conference championship, bowl games, had big wins against LSU and Nebraska, and came to West Virginia in a place that I believe then and I still believe now that really fits culturally. I'm from Central Kentucky, so it's close to home base for my wife and I, and it's a program that's steeped in tradition and it matters here. And the first 5 years were tough. There's a lot that happened in college athletics. You have COVID, you have NIL, you have the transfer portal, and we were kind of just treading water. And then in 22, things I thought we underachieved. Once you get done, and we finished well. We beat Oklahoma, we beat Oklahoma State, won 2 of our last 3 there, finishing up. But we're 5-7, missed a bowl game, and just disappointed. I thought our talent was better, and we didn't perform anywhere close to what I thought we could offensively. And then defensively, we just simply weren't good enough. And so I think that really made me kind of look in the mirror and kind of evaluate, what I was doing as the leader of the organization. And a lot of our processes changed. I think it started with me is taking a really look and say, okay, what are the things that are necessary that I do as a head coach, and then what am I really good at, and let's spend all my time on what I'm good at and what's necessary. And what's necessary in the role now is roster management, is dealing with name, image, and likeness, and raising funds for name, image, likeness. What I'm good at, I got the job at Troy and then here because we've been really good on offense. And so I took a more direct role with the offense. And then one of the strengths I've had throughout my career is just relationships with players. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of the other stuff is we've had people in place, is just letting them take it and run with it, whether it's strength conditioning, whether it's planning, our defense, our special teams is making sure we have the right people in place and then giving them the resources they need and let them run with it. And that's kind of how we attacked it. And then I think on the field, this is important, is we changed schematically what we did defensively. We really felt like we'd been and we were really good on defense at Troy, and we'd been, we were one of the top defenses in the country in 2020 here, and had been good, and then just kind of went off the rails in 22. And looked at who we needed to be able to compete in our league, and how we could get the talent here that was going to give us that opportunity. And we felt like switching to a 3-down front gave us that opportunity. So we made a system change and a philosophy change there. And then on offense, just went all in with a dual threat quarterback. And that's something that in both quarterbacks we have that have an opportunity to play for us, and Garrett Green and Nico Marchio are guys that we recruited here that have been in our program, and they're dual threat guys. And we went and we're really going to lean on the run game And we were the leading Power 5 rushing offense in the country last year, and we want to be more explosive in the pass game. And we were. There's some things we got to get better at in the pass game, but we were extremely explosive. And so really just that offensively, and then just the identity of our team. I think it's important for the football team, especially in West Virginia, that we mirror our state, and we felt like that. Who we needed to be from an identity standpoint is we needed to be a team that was disciplined and not beat ourselves. We need to be a team that played extremely hard. We need to be a tough mental and physical team, and then we need to be smart. And we started training that way year round. There's you have football meetings, you have OTAs in the summer, and we took this year-round approach to being better football players. And whether it's fundamentals and incorporating fundamentals into our off season with our strength coaches, and it's paid off. Now we're not where we want to be yet. The goal here is to compete for championships late in the month of November and get into that game in Dallas. And we feel like we can do that. We can get in the playoff. And so we haven't reached those goals yet, but we're much further than we were, when we started this back in January of 23.
You mentioned Garrett Green, your quarterback, and you look at some of these preseason predictions, and I'm looking at Pro Football Focus and their top 10 quarterbacks returning. And obviously it's, Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers, and bam, there's Garrett Green right there on that graphic. For those who haven't necessarily paid much attention to Garrett Green or know a lot about him, what does he bring to the table, both as a player and as a leader for your team?
Well, he's a dynamic playmaker on the field. He's really fast. In our most recent practice, he had over 21 and then had a 70-plus run. So he's really explosive. He's got all the arm talent. He can make all the throws the deep ball extremely well. Talking about Pro Football Focus, the reason they're so high on him because his explosive play rate and his ability to be accurate downfield on explosive passes and explosive runs. He was one of the top in the country in explosive runs last year. And he is the leader of our football team. He's got a great personality. He understands athletics. I think that comes from his upbringing. His dad's the bullpen coach for the Milwaukee Brewers. So he grew up in a family.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He grew up in a family of understand his grandfather was involved in baseball, was a junior college baseball coach for a long time and involved in baseball. So he comes from an athletic family that really understands, and they were patient. It didn't happen for him overnight. He really took over the reins as our starting quarterback with 3 games to go in 22, the year we talked about where we really struggled, and we won 2 of those games, and that just kind of rolled in to the success he had in 23. And we've got sky-high expectations for him. There's things he's got to get better at. He's got to get his completion percentage has to come up. He was at 53% last year. I think he has the potential, and we're really working on some things fundamentally to get him up in that mid-60s. And I think if he can do that, then what that does is it makes us more efficient in the red zone, more efficient on third downs. And, we can go from a, mid-20s national offense into hopefully a top 10 team.
Tyler Allen in as your quarterback's coach. What's that relationship like, and how is he helping Garrett Green get to that point?
Yeah, so Tyler's done a great job, and I think it's so Tyler was with Matt Canada as a student coach at LSU, and I always laugh. So he was on the staff at LSU as a student coach when we beat him. So I was like, well, you can't beat us, join us, right? And so he came the next year as a GA for us at Troy, was there, and then came with us here to West Virginia, and then had an opportunity to be the quarterback's coach at Jacksonville State, and then came back as an analyst to us. And he's really it's a great, because he's been instrumental in our success at Troy, and then here at West Virginia, especially last year after being gone for 2 years. He came back and really helped our developing quarterbacks. Like, he was here in 22, and where Garrett and Nico were both in the really developmental stage, and he played some real key role behind the scenes. And then last year in that analyst role really helped both those guys continue their progression. And then when Sean Reagan, who did a great job here, he left and went to be the offensive coordinator, and he it's time for him to be a play caller, and he'll do a great job at Troy. So I'm excited about him. But Tyler's really stepped into that role. It's been a seamless transition. He's making a difference not only with the quarterbacks, but also in recruiting. So really for a young coach that's kind of paid his dues, he's going to make a a big impact here.
Is it fair to say, I mean, you're known for your offense, and obviously Garrett Green's doing what he's doing and still building, but is it fair to say that the heart and soul of your offense is your offensive line? I mean, you look at your stats, only 10 sacks given up last year. I don't care who you are. I don't care what team you're playing, what conference you're playing, and that is impressive.
Well, that's something that we really, as we built this thing, we've built this through both line of scrimmages. And so when we got here, that was a struggle. We didn't have a whole lot of depth. And, we really feel like that we have the best strength conditioning coach in the country in Mike Joseph. We feel like that we've really established one of the best nutrition programs in the country. And so those two ingredients are really important as you put together your line of scrimmage, because what we want to be is we want to be a group that recruits and really out evaluates guys and takes guys with growth potential, bring them in, put them in our program, develop them, and then be able to retain them. And that's kind of the recipe for success, we believe, here at West Virginia. And we've been able to do that across both line of scrimmages. We have Zach Frazier, who really changed our program. He came in, he started every game but one, played in every game consecutively up until he got hurt in his very last game against Baylor in the regular season. But he was an elite player, but he was an elite worker. And what happened was he really changed our offensive line room and really set the standard and the expectation how they were going to prepare, both in the weight room, on the field, in the meeting room. And then the offensive line and defensive line, they're always going against each other, whether it's winter conditioning, whether it's in spring football, summer conditioning, into fall camp. And so that offensive line really set the tone for our defensive line and how they worked. And so those areas they're both the strength of our team. And I think that's a key for us. We've got to be a tough team. And, we talk about mental toughness a lot, but there's a physical component, and it's set every single game on the line of scrimmage. And if you look, Zach Frazier's got a chance to be a late first, early second round pick at the end of this week. We really believe our left tackle that returns, Wyatt Milam, will be a first round pick next year. Thomas Remack, who is another, Wyatt was a freshman All-American. Zach Frazier was a freshman All-American. Thomas Remack was a freshman All-American. And then we return really 5 of our top 7 guys up front. And we've got some redshirt freshmen that are ready to step up. And so we're going to miss Zach. We felt like he was the best interior offensive lineman in the country last year. But we also think that we have pieces in place. Brandon Yates will step into that role as a center. And we don't expect our production up front to lag.
You mentioned fundamentals defensively, and I was reading how tackling has been, a big part of this. And it sounds so easy to say, hey, we need to work on tackling. But in this day and age with limited contact in practices, how is your approach? And obviously philosophically, you said you were being more hands-on with the offense, but just philosophically, as you've watched this game sort of evolved, how hard is it to simply work on tackling in practice?
We have to be intentional, and you have to understand that there is some risk when you do tackle. And it's not necessarily the actual tackling piece. It's having bodies on the ground. That's where the real risk is. And so what we've done is we really spent a ton of time last winter studying and then taking a year-round approach to tackling. And it has a lot to do with some of the fundamentals and how you can work some of those fundamentals in a legal manner in your off-season program. And it has to do with bending and working on getting your hips through and taking angles, working really pursuit angles as part of your conditioning. And so actually doing, when you get into your speed and your conditioning, actually doing that in a football mode, and doing it where you're working angles as you run. And so I think that's been a big help. We've done a ton of grip work, because so much of tackling is just grabbing hold of people. So we've done a ton of real grip work. And then what we try to do is every day in the spring, every day in fall camp, is we do some kind of body-on-body work. And not necessarily taking them to the ground all the time, but we're working body-on-body. We use the track mats a lot, the mat you see in the long jump pits and the high jump, or not long jump, but the high jump pits, is so you protect the guys on that. Defensively, we do a tackling circuit and what we call path to the ball circuit that's really about block destruction. We do that every day in fall camp. We do it every day in spring football. We do it 2 days a week during the season. We tackle probably more than most within spring practice and within fall camp. we abide by the rules, but when they allow us to tackle, we do that. It's one of those skills you have to work on it, and you have to be committed. In my opinion, you have to be committed to it year round. And then we do some good on good tackling drills where they're safe, but in a small condensed area, offensive players have to learn how to run with the ball in their hands, and then defensive players have to understand how to make the tackle and where their help's coming from. And then special teams, we've taken a really team-wide approach where we do tackling drills. And so all that together, it's kind of, and we talk about it. We talk about it a lot. You know, we've got different stats we look at and things like that. So by no means have we arrived. You know, I think we were a better tackling team last year, but we have to continue, especially in one-on-one situations. That's a point of emphasis for us as we head into 24.
So you're wrapping up spring practice this week with the spring game on Saturday. Is there one player or a couple players that have stood out this spring that maybe you weren't expecting to be, as big of a surprise as they are?
Yeah, I think, we'll start on the defensive side. Garnett Hollis, who's a transfer from Northwestern, corner. Been really impressed with him. I think he's a draft guy next year. I think he'll make a big impact on our team and in our conference. I think that Aubrey Burks, we've moved him around. He's a guy that's played a lot of football here and has graded out well. We're moving him around, getting some position flexibility. I really feel like our linebackers, Trey Lathan, Ben Cutter, Josiah Trotter, who's a redshirt freshman, that's going to be a real strength of our team. And then Sean Martin on defense is another guy. He's a D lineman, played a lot of football here. He's 6'5", 295, and it's starting to click for him. And I think he's really not only turned into a really good Big 12 player, but a kid that's going to go early in the draft next year. And then offensively, Jaheim White's picking up right where he left off, is a guy that's made a bunch of plays. Nico Marchio, who's our second quarterback, he's made a lot of progress. And then Garrett has really improved. So those are some guys. I like our young receiver core. They played a lot as freshmen and first-year players. Preston Fox is probably the guy that's had the best spring of those guys. But I like that group and what they're giving us right now.
You're getting tablets and helmet communication. And I've always been of the opinion, look, guys, if we can get D3 to have instant replay, we can get 20 tablets on the sideline. It's really, iPads are not that expensive. But how have you changed your approach, knowing that first this was a possibility and now it seems like it's reality?
Yeah, so I think much needed. This has been a long time coming. I think the more that we can make, off the field, our game is becoming more and more like the NFL, which you can argue back and forth whether that's good or bad. I'm a guy that I just want to know the rules and let's play by them. Okay. But on the field, our game should mirror the NFL. For the casual fan, they shouldn't be able to turn a game on Saturday and Sunday, and the rules should be the same. This is my opinion. So even the 2-minute warning, I think, is a positive for our game. The helmet, the player or the coach to player communication is a real positive. Everybody talks about it from the offensive end. I think really the biggest benefit is going to be defensively, because motions, shifts, adjust, those things, the defensive coach is now going to be able to talk to, whether it's your safety or your linebacker, who's ever wearing that communication device, and you'll be able to get set. So in tempo, you'll be able to get your tempo calls in, I think faster. Offensively, that's something that's been a point of emphasis for us. We've been playing with a bunch of different ideas. It's been trial and error. Good thing for us is we've used it the last 2 springs, and then we used it in the bowl game.
Really?
And so we've got some experience using that. But I think there's going to be some new and different things. We're trying to be innovative in how we're going to approach it. And then on the tablets, it's really getting used to them. We haven't used them this spring. We're going to get really into it in fall camp. We used them in our bowl game, and they're helpful. They're definitely helpful. Again, I'm not sure that doesn't help the defense more because it gives you an idea of kind of how the offense is going to attack, and it allows you to counter. And so offensively, I think you may need to carry more plays and some things like that into a game. But I think they're positive. There's no reason why we shouldn't use technology in our game.
100% agree. So we're in the middle of the transfer portal. I really appreciate you taking the time in the middle of portal season. Is there somebody in your office right now just clicking F5 on a computer, hitting refresh to see if somebody's jumped in?
Yeah, so for us, the biggest priority for us is holding on to the guys that we need to hold on to. And I don't expect us to be 100%. But the guys that can really help us, that's what we want. That's our focus in the portal right now. It's just retention. And then there's some pieces that, there may be a couple pieces we need to add. And we have a high school recruiting department and we have a scouting department, and they both work together with our GM putting together our roster. And so your roster is always moving. You're always trying to make it better. And for sure, those guys are down in that room right now, trying to figure out how we can get better.
Is there, I'm going to put a hypothetical out there. Let's just say you don't have a quarterback, and last year, Caleb Williams decides to jump in after winning the Heisman. Like, what would the process be like if there's somebody like that out of nowhere that you weren't expecting to jump in?
Well, I think it depends. There's different layers to this, right? And I think it's no different when you're looking for a house. Some people can afford, the waterfront with 10,000 square feet, and then some people can't. Some people you're trying to figure out the 2-bedroom. And I think there's a lot in the middle. And so I think a lot of it just depends on what's out there, who can afford. And then what are you exactly looking for? Are you looking for a starter? Are you looking for a key backup? There's a lot of people don't think about this is like, how does it work in your locker room?
Mm-hmm.
Because no different than, I think about in baseball, like last year, the Dodgers had the best payroll, right? You're in baseball right now. The Dodgers, did they win the World Series? And it's no. All right. Well, why? Well, some of it's injury, some of it's execution, but some of it, I don't know that. I don't follow them, but there may have been some chemistry issues, right? And so I think we're dealing with the same thing. So it's got to be right fit. So I think really what you do is the process works like this. They go in the portal, you evaluate them. There's different video software. You evaluate them. If you have a previous relationship, it's much easier. Or if you have a relationship with the people that are surrounding them, it's easier. But you evaluate them and you do it off athleticism, based off their ability to play the game of football first. You make sure that academically, and that's usually quick transition. And the third thing is you want to make sure that they're going to be a character fit for what you're looking for. And you got to make those determinations really, really fast. It's a little different than high school recruiting because it's usually a 2-year process. This thing's speed dating. And so you just got to understand you're going to have some misses there. But you want to make sure your processes are as good as they can be to minimize the misses you're going to have.
Neal, last thing, and this is sort of people our age. You're roughly the same age as I am, and I don't know if you played the video game. If you did, what team did you lead to national success?
You talking about the EA Sports game?
Yes.
I'm an awful video game guy. I just remember when I was on the game, man, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So that was the only time that I ever played the game was I was actually on it.
Really?
And I was terrible. But I was like, all right, because I was obviously in college, and hey, man, you get on the game and everybody's like playing it, and it was my first. I can't remember. It might have been it must have been my redshirt sophomore year, I think. But I was on it, and I can just remember like, oh, okay, the white guy wearing 7, man, that's cool. That's me. You know what I mean? And I'm sure my speed was way off. Like it was way slow. And no, it's but I was never much of a gamer, which I wish. I think there's some good and some bad in that. But I do remember that feeling in college. That's pretty cool.
And now they get paid for it. So it's a step in a direction that I think a lot of us who have been around, sort of this entire sport thought that should have been the case for a long time. Neal, appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, Barrett, appreciate what you do for our sport.
Thank you. Joined now by UNLV coach Barry Odom, a guy who has experienced all throughout the country and very successful in year 1 at UNLV. Barry, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks, Barrett. I appreciate the time and being on with you. Much respect for everything you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. So year 1, man, 9 wins. You go to the Mountain West Championship game. What'd you do? How did you turn this program around so quickly?
Well, I think as you know, when you take over something new and a new program, and in this case, a place that had struggled for a number of years, there's always reasons why. And I think number one, we had a really good roster when we got here. I think the previous staff had done a nice job on some recruiting pieces. We were able to add to that with a really solid high school class right when we got here. And then we were able to add some guys, some transfer wise, that became impact players for us. And really, I think our coaches did a tremendous job. Our assistant coaches did a great job on getting us better every single week. But Barrett, I'm telling you, the way that our kids, the way that our team approached every single week, the way that they worked, really everything that we put out in front of them, program, philosophy, they were hungry for it. They thrived in the structure. I thought we competed really well. We didn't finish the season the way we wanted to. We lost, our last game. We lost the championship game, and then came up short in the bowl game. So 9 wins in the regular season was the best season this place had in 40 years. So that was a great start for us. I think that our foundation is really, really strong. The recruiting base in Vegas, there's 36 high schools. We can connect with the city and get really good players to stay home. And then, playing in the Mountain West Conference, last year was year 25 of the league. It's a really strong league and a good league from top to bottom. When you look at the different places that we had to go play and win in the month of November, it was no easy task.
I know you weren't there when Sam Boyd Stadium was your home, but it's way out there for people who don't know. Sam Boyd Stadium's way out there, but you're playing in Allegiant Stadium. How much do you use the NFL Stadium as a recruiting tool, especially considering, look, you're right across the highway from all the lights and lasers at the Strip.
Yeah, it's amazing. And in my belief, it's the finest football facility in all the country. And for us to be able to call that home is a huge advantage for us. We've got a wonderful football operations center, the Fertitta Football Complex, that is good as of a facility that I've been in this building. We've got the coaches' offices, we've got meeting rooms, locker room, sports medicine, academic resource center, weight room. So it's a one-stop shop. And I think that is really, really unique to what we have. Our kids get here every morning, and they don't have to leave to go to academics. They don't have to leave to go to the dining hall. It's a great setup and a great flow for our student athletes. And then the ability for our guys to play in Allegiant, to play in that platform and that arena, it's remarkable. And we're using it and have turned it into a great home field advantage for us.
So for your team this year, it's a little difficult for a group of 5 team to be successful. You lose your starting quarterback and you have another quarterback medically retire. So you wrapped up spring practice a couple weeks ago. Where are you in terms of your quarterback situation heading into fall camp?
Yeah, I think, as you look at any level of football, if you've got a really good quarterback play, you're going to have a chance. And I think we had a transfer that came in January. We had a kid on the roster last year, Cam Friel, that we felt really good about. And then Haj Malik Williams was a transfer that came in from Campbell University and was able to go through spring practice. We've got another transfer coming in May, and those 3 guys are going to battle it out. We feel like with the supporting cast, we feel like we've got the pieces in place to have a more explosive offense. We feel the opportunity. Now we've got to go do it. We've got 4 of our 5 offensive linemen back. We've got a wide receiver in Ricky White who had 1,500 yards last year's back. Jacob DeJesus was an All-American punt returner, kick returner is a slot. He's back. And then we added some pieces around them, either the development of our program of guys that were here or guys we went and recruited to come here to play ball. So the standard is to win the championship, and that's what I said the first day we got here. I wanted to win championships, and we've got to get back in the game and find a way to win it.
You mentioned 4 or 5 offensive linemen. Obviously that's the lifeblood of any offense. And with so much, I guess, relative inexperience, at least at the FBS level, in terms of your quarterback position, how much do you think that'll help these guys sort of ingratiate themselves into the offense?
Yeah, we've got to be able to run the football. We were very successful last year on the ground. We led the country up until the bowl game in rushing touchdowns. But that's going to be a hallmark of what we have to do that. And that doesn't mean line up and run the power 25 times a game, but we've got to be able to establish and run the ball. We've got to be able to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And if we do that, then offensively, we've got a chance to be really explosive, because I think we've got a chance, Barrett, if we can run the ball, we've got the pieces in place, not only the quarterback spot, but on the outside that we can really stretch the field vertically. And I don't feel like we did that as well as we could have last year.
I know you're a defensive guy and you love power in the trenches, and you're loaded in terms of experience up front defensive wise. And you've obviously coached in the SEC. You know how important it is to have depth. Do you feel like you have the kind of defensive front right now where you can roll 7, 8, 9 guys in and keep everybody fresh?
We're getting there. We're not there yet. And that's so important. But as you said, the front 7 defensively, if you're good up front, you're probably going to play pretty good defensive ball. So we're getting there. I think we've got some young guys in the program that really came on this spring and have showed some things, no game experience yet. So we've got to get them game ready. We've got to get them ready to play at a high level. And fortunately, through our summer ball program and then what we do in fall camp, we'll be ready to go week 1. And they're going to have to be, because week 1, we open up at Houston, obviously in the Big 12 conference. Week 3, we go to Kansas. So I feel like we're playing a little Big 12 flavor of the schedule this year. So we've got to be ready early to play winning ball.
The transfer portal goes both ways, obviously. And Tony Grimes, a guy who has plenty of experience at the Power 5 level, 5-star prospect coming in, goes to North Carolina, goes to Texas A&M, now is with you in Las Vegas. What do you expect from him in terms of not only success on the field, but also from a leadership standpoint?
Yeah, I think his experience has really helped us. He had a good spring. He's a long player, got tremendous speed, good football IQ. And more than anything, I think guys have looked, because he's been in the arena and has made plays, that he's got an opportunity to help us early on. Malik Chavis, a transfer from Arkansas, the same way Jalen Catalon, a transfer from the University of Texas, who I coached before at Arkansas. Mm-hmm. Those 3 guys will make immediate impacts for us. And then John O'Baldwin comes back, that had a really good year last year for us. Another year in the system and the scheme. Those guys communicated at a high level. They had a good spring and understanding that we can do things a little bit differently when they're playing the way that they can, the way they need to, for us to play good defensive ball.
You mentioned Catalan, and I mean, obviously you've been in the SEC. You know these guys, right? Like you've been around a lot of these guys for a long time. Do you find it that not just last season's success, but just relationships with you in general have helped you? So I wouldn't say rebuild that defense, but really provide the depth and the talent that you need to succeed.
I think so. I mean, I'm in the business and have been for a long time. And the core principle for me is relationship building. And that's with coaching staff members. That's with the opportunity to recruit student athletes. And then for me to help them have a platform to be successful. And those things that, if you do things right, you're open and you're honest and you treat people the right way, fortune's going to come back around. And, we all learn from our experiences. I'm a heck of a lot better coach today than I was when I got the Missouri job or when I was at Memphis, or we all learn from our experiences and you apply them at your next opportunity. So I think this is a little bit that for me. And then also for the guys that have transferred here, they've got an understanding of who I am, what they're going to get every single day, and then the opportunity to play in a program where they can be themselves, the culture is strong, and we got a chance to be a really good football team.
So the portal window is open, and I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me during the portal window, because I know it's a busy time for you guys. Is there somebody in your complex right now hitting refresh over and over again on a computer to see if anybody jumps in?
You know it better than, everybody, the portal is the worst thing in the world. And then when you get somebody, it's the best thing in the world. Right. So there's give and take. And I whether you like it or don't, traditional thinking or not, whatever it is, it's here and it's here to stay. So we're going to use it very aggressively. We're going to be a high school recruiting team and program. But if we have guys that leave that are older in the program, it's our charge as a coaching staff is we're going to find a way to upgrade. And we're going to go get guys that fit and want to be here and can help us play winning ball. We're active. We haven't had a lot of turnover, knock on wood. I know I say that, my phone's going to start ringing. Or the knock on the door, coach, I need to talk to you. Those are usually not great ones. But I had exit meetings with everybody on the entire roster after spring ball was over. And got a pretty good feel on where we are as a program. I understand how things can change. I'm not lost in the fact that that it's an ever moving, ever constant rebuild of your roster. But we're in a pretty good spot. And I think guys that want to come here and have the opportunity to play here, they're going to understand that they're going to get coached really well, going to have a chance to get and prepared for the NFL, going to graduate with a great degree, and we've got a chance to win a bunch of games.
I know relationships are all over the place, but has there ever been a moment in this era of the transfer portal where somebody pops in and you're just like, oh my God, I had no idea that was coming?
I did, and I've been on both sides of it, unfortunately. But I think the longer you're in it, the more that we get used to the world of the portal. Surprises are going to always happen, and you've got to, we've got our high school recruiting board, and then we've got a portal recruiting board, and those are changing. It's a living document every single minute of the day on what that looks like.
I've talked to a lot of coaches, and it's crazy. Your job is to coach football, and yet from end of November to maybe the middle of January, you have to do a bunch of other things as well. And to a point where I've talked to coaches that weren't able to actually coach bowl practices because of the calendar being so busy. What would you do? Is there a couple things you would do if you were the czar of college football to sort of change the calendar to make it a little bit easier on you guys?
Yeah, I think, number one, you've got to embrace it, whatever it is that everybody's living by it. So you've got to make it work. And you've got to be really organized and disciplined with your time on how you're going to use it as a staff. I worry a little bit about my coaching staff, about the burnout effect on what that looks like, on the things that I'm having them do. But also there's a balance there. I do not believe just sitting in the office to say that you're working to say, let's be deliberate on what we're trying to go do. Let's make sure that it's backed up by some substance in what we're trying to get done. And then, the minutes and the hours that we do have, let's use it better than anybody does. And if you do that, then you're going to have a chance to field a really competitive team. I look at, and I've had lots of conversations with the AFCA and the NCAA and the direction this is going. And I think, I don't know that earlier is always better for high school kids. And I say that I've got a dad. I'm a dad that's I've got a freshman in high school, a freshman in college that plays football for me here at UNLV. I've got a junior son going to be a senior in high school. So I've lived the recruiting through both of them. I understand it from their perspective, from being a dad, and then also being a head coach. So I don't know that earlier is better. I think the more that we can get around kids and develop relationships with them and their families, that's going to help us in the evaluation process. And it also helps them have a memorable, maybe junior or senior year of high school. So I would rather slow down a little bit, but I don't know that trend is moving in that direction.
Yeah, toothpaste might be out of the tube on that.
Right.
Last thing, I mean, you're in Vegas. It's a tourist destination. I'm not asking if you're going out and playing craps at Bellagio until 3 a.m., but what do you do to get away from football in a town like Vegas?
It's amazing. It's become the sports mecca of the world. I mean, and then besides from the sports, we had Formula One, there's NASCAR, the Super Bowl, we had the Pro Bowl here, all the different things, the Aces, the Golden Knights, they've all won championships. And then, so it's a sports town and there's always something going on. There's a buzz of the feel of the city. But last year when we made the championship game and the run there at the end, there was enough buzz for college football, which is exciting to see. The food scene is maybe the best in the world. Anything that you want is there. My wife and I have enjoyed that part of it. There's different, the culture scene is off the charts. So there's enough of the strip activity that you can get, but then things that I think I didn't know until I got here. The world outside of the strip in Las Vegas is tremendous. You got hiking. There's a ski slope within an hour of our campus. I mean, there's some really unbelievable, unmatched places that I think our families are starting to see, and then the university, on the way that we attract student athletes here, they're able to see that as well.
Well, just don't end up in Area 51. Just bad things might happen there.
Just drive by. It's a drive by. Don't stop.
See if you see anything, but don't stop. Exactly.
That's
Barry,
right.
appreciate you hopping on.
Thanks, man. Take care.
That'll do it for this edition of the College Football Smothered and Covered Weekend Feast, the best of show from the week that was. Don't forget to give us a follow, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever you get your college football content. We'll be back for another full week of College Football Smothered and Covered next week. Until then, have a great weekend, everybody.